So that's the first example of broadcast TV from a long time ago. So there are a couple of TV sets. One I would say from the 60s on the right, and then a little more recent one on the left. Of course, that's the hardware we're talking about now. And of course, we can also watch TV, can't we? We can watch TV, the networks, and or Hulu, which is pretty darn related to the networks, taking a lot of their content, owned by Disney and some of the other networks, Hulu. We can watch that on our mobile. So lots of device things going on. In fact, here's a chart that's based on Nielsen data, where they are tracking what sort of device people are watching on. And so on the right, on the darker turquoise, is Q4 2016 data, and on the left is Q4 2015. So it's viewing trends among the younger group, 18-34-year-olds, which I guess most of you guys are in. And this is a couple of years old, but the trends are just continuing. And you can see here that things are moving away from televisions, meaning the larger things that we saw on the previous slide back one or two. They're going more to TV-connected devices, to PCs, tablets, and smartphones. And the smartphone, of course, is the one that's growing so much. Okay, and this is pretty similar to the TV I have. I got a Roku TV because I actually had a nice Samsung, and a fly was on the screen, and I thought, aha, now I've got you. And I had this great fly swatter, and I whacked him, or her, or it, and guess what? It wasn't good for my Samsung screen, so that was the last of that. I would have fixed it because I don't like throwing things away for obvious reasons these days, just because it's not good for the environment. So the cheapest option was to get a Roku TV, which guess what? Comes with all these choices, which I guess you guys know about. It also comes with having my viewing habits tracked, and that's why the hardware is so cheap. And so speaking of Ultra HD TVs and hardware, this shows how they are penetrating. You've got millions of TVs, or households, I should say, on the left, up to 600 million, 700 million. And the different colors in each one of the different bars or columns represents a different continent. Asia Pacific being the biggest in terms of households deploying smart TVs. And this is as of December 2018. So smart TVs in terms of televisions are taking over households, and in the meantime, of course, watching is moving, not just to, not just the TVs and, the big TV sets, but to mobile devices and other things. This is a pretty interesting and yet complicated chart I found about, basically about the story of cable. The different colored things you're seeing are different ways of connecting. Different types of cable, and you've got broadband there in kind of a red, and on-demand programming, high-speed internet, high-definition TV, and you've got U.S. cable actually originating over on the left there in 1948. Who knew? In a couple of states, people were not happy with television that was received wirelessly. And let's face it, the picture quality for wirelessly received television has never been very terrific. It still isn't. And so it might be okay for just a simple little audio signal for radio. It just doesn't hack it for if you want to watch something in color and, high resolution or anything else. Anyway, you can see here, as you kind of track, 1952, 70 cable systems, 14,000 subscribers nationwide, so it's quietly kind of building up. And in 1972, HBO is founded by Time Inc. as the first pay TV network, so the first subscription-based network, but all offered on cable. So they had, what do they get with cable? They got this very high-quality picture, no problems with antennae and getting signals, but all of a sudden all these wires are everywhere, right? 16 million cable subscribers in 1980, 53 million subscribers and 79 networks in 1990. 1995, all these different programming services. Then you've got cable deciding that we can do more than just send video and TV content. We have a lot of space in these cables. Why don't we do internet access? So in the 90s, particularly the late 90s, cable companies are offering internet access and phone service. 2002, digital cables are reaching 27% of cable customers in 2005, almost 25 million subscribers. The number of digital cable customers actually had grown to 27.6 million. So these wires started in 1948, and by the early 2000s, these wires are carrying all kinds of content into our houses, aren't they, folks? In fact, this shows the number of channels. So basically, cable not only offers better picture quality, but it offers the ability to have more than 3 or 4 channels that work and that you can receive. And so everybody jumps into, let's start a cable channel and cable network. And you can see here the numbers of channels available to people through 2016. This is from your book. And the number of average numbers that they watch per household. It's 15 channels per household. And of course, Netflix really starts to change. Netflix, of course, starts as mailing DVDs, right? That's how I started with them. And they first put the local DVD store out of business because, of course, another thing going on with TV was DVR recorders and then DVD recorders and renting high-quality programming since you couldn't get it. You couldn't watch it necessarily when you wanted to through your cable. You could rent for a day or whatever it is, the movies you wanted or the programming you wanted and show it through your recorder. Not too many ads on those, of course, maybe 1 or 2 up front, mostly coming attractions because they're controlled by the people that do the content and all they want to sell is their own content. But then Netflix is kind of brilliant and gets into the streaming business really in a big way before anybody else does. And now they've, as I'm sure you all know, they've separated out their DVD business. I think it's called DVD.com or something like that. And they're only doing streaming. They still run the DVD business, but they made them separate companies. You can buy separate stock. One's really growing and one ain't. And in terms of many channels and cable and now introduction of streaming and internet and cable all delivered on the same thing, and your TV being connected to the internet, all of a sudden we have all these streaming services. And of course, if the content isn't being broadcast, if it's sent over the wire and you can say no to it or block it if you want, the kind of content you can get on cable and via streaming services is different from what you can get over the wires because the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, isn't blocking too much of anything on cable and streaming content. You can say the F word as much as you want. You can show almost anything you want and deal with adult topics and difficult topics, and you've really got some now more mature kind of hard edge programming, which this day and age seems to be one of the things people want quite a lot. So, in fact, these are the 2020 Emmys This is who won. So, and these are the Fleabag from Amazon, one outstanding comedy series. Game of Thrones from HBO, drama series. Chernobyl, which is terrific. All these programs are terrific. I haven't really watched too much of Fleabag, but I watched a little bit. It looks pretty good. Anyway, you can see Netflix, Bandersnatch, Saturday Night Live, NBC. So there's one winner from a network. And if you look at even the finalists, okay, I see NBC with The Good Place, ABC, Jimmy Kimmel Live, CBS, Late Show. That's outstanding variety talk series. But you just don't see too much going on from the networks, the old-fashioned networks, the original broadcast networks, the wireless networks, over-the-air networks. You just don't see too much from them winning in terms of quality of programming anymore. And this also just following up on the same thing this shows. For acting, the major awards for the Emmys, and it's it's HBO, it's Amazon, it's BBC America, it's FX, Netflix, FX. So really, I think if we start to pull all this together, all these changes and things going on with TV and with internet now kind of coming in and growing, and in terms of media spend and everything else, this thing called television used to be the king and was the king for a long time. But the king is dead. What is that? And is there a new king? And of course, in terms of spending, this is the spending chart we've been showing all this term. 2017 projected for 2021, and you can see that internet, including internet video, growing like crazy. And that internet, by the way, includes mobile. TV is not the king anymore, and that's in the U.S., and this is internationally, and it's the same thing. The king is dead and going through some flux in terms of what he or the queen is dead, what he or she is going to become. That, when I did a Google search of the word flux for a picture, that's what I got. So that's a flux, everybody. So that's the end of our little overview, and next section is very quickly, what is it? And let's just do that, because that won't last very long. Definition of television, I should say, is there. A system for transmitting visual images and sound that are reproduced on screens, chiefly used to broadcast programs for entertainment, information, and education. It's also the hardware. Television is this thing that receives television signals and reproduces them on a screen. Most of them tend to be big, so they can sit in a living room and be viewed by more than one person. And so I think that's a key little point of difference here for content that's viewable on a television as a noun. It has more impact than content we see on, for instance, mobile phone. So our next discussion is technology. I'm going to stop here, and then we'll start up with technology.